So I wanted to discuss these Gravity Hill videos that are often on paranormal channels. I was watching some on that's that's Impossible channel, something like that. And these are a commonly reported paranormal phenomenon. So I just wanted to give my understanding and explanation of this phenomenon, and it also the explanation correlates with some of the proofs that flat earthers use to hold on to their insane theory. But so let's okay, so these gravity hills, often these are stated to be illusions, but it's not precisely an illusion. That's a misunderstanding. What we're encountering here is the limits of human sense perception and the fact that distance and space are relative. So to say what is level, and even when using a electronic level device, which some of these people have at these hills, it is only picking up a local measurement. I'm saying that there is no actual level. For example, if I use the most precise level and it reads perfectly, even a laser, it is picking up only the level within a certain distance and frame of reference. So to be clear, I'm saying the Earth is round and there can be no flat level. However, within a certain deviation and from our limited perspective, we may find a usable, practical level. Now, these hills are specific locations where the differential between the local slope and the larger counter slope create a place where gravity will act upon a body in a counter-intuitive manner, at least to our sense perceptions. So even our cameras and recording devices would show a perfectly normal event if you could zoom out and remove the underlying mountain or hill. Or in other words, if you could see the body, if you could see the gravity hill and the sea level ground of Earth below it and the body it was acting upon, you would then see a predictable falling path. So what we're talking about here, this is also one of the flaws in the flat earther proofs where people set up lasers to show there's no deviation, even though they are actually being deceptive, because there is already well documented laser evidence of slope deviation within, in the horizon. It just needs to be a precise enough laser. Not that it's even needed, because there's so much evidence that our world is a sphere. None of the lunar mechanics or the celestial mechanics would work in that way. Like to try to engineer it into a flat Earth model simply will not work. But anyways, and let me also add, because often some of the theories behind these gravity hills of explanation, anyways, is that there is a large magnetic cache of some kind of metal underneath that is that is overriding the force of gravity. Okay, now that's not physically possible, that explanation. Magnetism is a far weaker force. Electromagnetic force is a far weaker force than gravity, especially being that any magnetic force would be countered by the overall magnetic force of the Earth and also the gravity of the Earth. So both of those large forces are acting in one unified way upon any body, on the Earth. So it would have to counter over that force, and the only possible thing that could ever be happening in that regard is that a magnetic force could act upon the metal of a car, in some magnetic way at a particular place to perhaps cause a repulsive force with an additional slope or something that would cause one of these things. But it's certainly not the majority of these, if that's the situation anywhere, something like that. And in that case, it would only act upon, ferrous material, things that are susceptible to magnetic forces. So it would not act upon plastic bodies or things like that, or a ball, for instance. If it's acting upon the ball too, it is for certain just, a differential in slope in our perception. Anyways. Now, I've discussed flat Earth theory many times in the past and stated the most obvious points to me, at least, to debunk it. And also to explain the few places that they do have something right. So let me just go over that again and add a few more points in case I may help free anyone from this misconception. Okay, so the first point I like to make is that when you see a raindrop fall or a bubble form, they are always spheres. Why? Because this is the most stable configuration. Gravity acts upon every part of a body equally, dependent only on density. This is why it is one of the fundamental forces which shape this reality. Now, I can explain what gravity is from a higher dimensional perspective another time. For now, I just want us to see why a sphere is the obvious configuration any massive body would form. Because flat earthers like to say it is a disk, and we are in a three-dimensional reality. This means the forces would act to crush the disk of material into a sphere. In fact, the only reason we see any kind of disks in the universe is those of orbiting, the paths of smaller orbiting bodies around a larger massive body. And this only occurs because of the counterforce between the angular momentum caused by the rotation of the smaller bodies, balanced or counterbalanced by the gravity of the larger massive body. Okay, but let us return earlier to where I said flat earthers had a few things right. So the first place, and this only applies to some of them, is that they overcome the illogical aspects of the theory by saying the whole reality is a simulation. Well, that's technically true, but we are the simulators, and all simulations have structures and rules, including this one. The laws of physics are part of that programming, and in this reality, the world is a sphere. Now, the other point flat earthers get kind of right is that they feel they have been lied to. They feel they have been brainwashed. They feel they've been manipulated and kept in the dark. And this is certainly true. However, they are missing that they are currently being deceived with this very theory, that this is a psychological tactic to keep them confused and doubting everything. Because the curvature of the Earth and geomapping is one of the most advanced and best understood areas of all science. With GPS satellites and visual recordings, we can literally see the whole globe. People have flown and sailed all the way around the world. I mean, when last we believed the Earth was flat, we had not explored it all. Or at least man had forgotten that we had a long time in the past. But if you simply observe the horizon, and I grew up in Florida, so I have seen many boats appear over the horizon a section at a time, which obviously means curvature. Obviously, we cannot see all the constellations at once. Oh, but that's because flat earthers don't believe in space, but rather a projected display above us. Our Creator doesn't make fake creations. All the mechanics of this universe are flawless. And these mechanics, the celestial mechanics, the lunar mechanics, the movement of the spheres, this is all very well understood and very observable. So, I hope this helps.